Perfect. Okay, we're time. Let me just move this. Welcome, Uta. And okay, Anthony's coming back. So thanks a lot for coming. Nice to see you, Tony. Oh, and we've got actually quite a few people coming in now. So thank you all for coming, and I'm really grateful that one of the people I really, really enjoy speaking to, who's a real superhero, but incredibly modest, Michael Madden, has agreed to join us today and share his insight, having worked for decades in frontier markets. So, Michael, you have a really unusual career, having worked in many, many frontier markets and still active. For those that are not familiar with Ronak and Michael Madden, the frontier market superhero, share your journey from early Russia to Mongolia to Myanmar and elsewhere. And thank you again for doing this.
Yeah, not a problem, Robert. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Yeah, my exploitation or my entry into emerging economies started in the early 90s when I moved to Russia with a multinational, American Express, at the beginning of 1993. And that was moving from Ireland into a frontier market. Number one, it was all new to me. I was probably, naive, I would say ignorant to a certain degree about what I was walking into. But that was my education and my initial business experience in Russia in the early 90s. Yes, you're cocooned in what I would say with a multinational, but you still had that frontline experience of dealing with bureaucracy and the changing and the introduction of new laws and legislation and things you're trying to do that don't work, and you hear no a lot of times. And I think this is where you build up your tenacity and your focus to persevere through some certain challenges. But I spent 4 wonderful years. My experience, I know there's a lot of negative things about Russia, but I spent 4 wonderful years in Russia in the early 90s. And then thereafter, I operated from London, again working for the American Express company, but I worked in a lot of their emerging economies where they didn't operate a business, but they franchised businesses. So I started with 4 countries and then ended up with about 17, but that's countries where Amex did not invest into, but gave out the license to a bank to issue cards and do merchant acquiring on its network. And, some of the countries that I have great memories are Greece, Turkey, South Africa, Israel, believe it or not, but it was good. But I went back to Russia then, once I stepped off that multinational train. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, trying to do something more entrepreneurial. Thinking entrepreneurial was moving with a multinational to emerging markets. You need to do it yourself. So I went back to Russia as the founding CEO of a consumer credit bank, which I started from scratch in 2003, not my capital. But I started.
Does that bank still exist?
Yes, it does. It's part of the Renaissance Capital Group, but the bank itself is Renaissance Credit.
Okay.
And yes, some of the people I hired from day one are still in the institution. And
no, because
clearly,
one of my Russian entrepreneurs, he's actually joined the call, so I was just curious.
Well, interesting. I just read something in the Financial Times this morning, or was it yesterday's paper? I think I read this morning, maybe it was yesterday's, maybe it was today's, but about how well the Russian banks are doing despite all of the sanctions. Yeah. Anyway, we won't get into that. But
Okay.
yeah, 4 wonderful years in Russia. Again, subsequently 2003 to 2006. And then thereafter I exited in 2007 from that institution. And this is where luck comes in. Sometimes you make your luck because remember, we had the financial, I think everyone remembers, we had the financial crisis in 2008. And I got out at a very interesting and healthy valuation and did okay for myself. And I thank the Renaissance Capital Group for that. It was a great, again, I'm being fortunate with my experience in Russia, which was only but positive. And thereafter, cut to the end here that's where I started to do a combination of both investing and advising. And I think anyone who's involved in emerging economies know that you can't run this off an Excel spreadsheet. You need to combine that operating knowledge with that investment experience, investment knowledge, I should say, in building businesses, building relationships, and building out their strategies in emerging economies. And that's what I continue to do today. And that really was, Mongolia and a number of other markets, Kyrgyzstan and quite a few others. But that in 2013, 14, when I started looking at Myanmar, was okay, maybe there's an opportunity to build something since the market's opening up. I couldn't find anything I wanted to invest into, so I started a business from scratch there. And it was very open. Everyone was going there. I don't look for challenging situations. I've done very well in emerging economies, but I'm not chasing challenging situations. I'm chasing opportunities, windows of opportunities, where I describe it, you put thin pieces of capital to work and you create value.
But when you were in Russia, it was quite early. I mean, it was really not well developed. So there was no really infrastructure for a lot of things. And I think that was similar in Mongolia and also in Myanmar. So you're going into, which you probably see, oh, there's a great opportunity. We can bring the right way of doing things. But what were some of the early challenges, particularly in Russia, in Mongolia, and Myanmar, that you faced that you didn't face in other places?
Yeah, I think Russia's sort of different because, as saying, and I use the word cocooned, I worked within a multinational, so I was doing something that was in a box, and it was very, it was restricted to a certain degree. It was more the operating environment was difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Russia is very advanced. I mean, Russia is very, very advanced. Highly educated population. For me, Russia is very advanced. I think it was more the bureaucracy and coming and thinking that the way I did things when I was living in Ireland and doing things elsewhere, it would work in Russia. Of course, that's the first, you get that cold shower 1 week in or 2 weeks into, like, no, things work differently here. And I suppose they're the lessons, some of the key things you learn is that, you're working in that country and you need to work to the rules and regulations of how that country operates, whether you like it or not. However, you must stick to the values of, who you are and what your business is as well, because there's certain things you don't want to partake in. So I think that continues clearly today in terms of what are your values and what is your, what's your guiding operating principles, and then how do you navigate those operating principles when you're working in a evolving emerging economy. I think it was more the economy was changing, but Russia for me was very well developed, highly educated. I remember launching the bank, and people said you're going to get toasted, you're going to get roasted. Russians are not going to repay. There's no problem with Russia because they're so well educated. The issue was always one of fraud. So you have to put that into two buckets, But in terms of credit quality, the best. In terms of, and remember, in terms of a country like that, there's great data. Everyone, who everyone is, because everyone's got an ID card. They've got they either had a domestic passport or an international passport, and they carry it with them all the time. So there's good data, and in any business, you need data. So you had a good base of data. Whether you could rely on that data, that's another thing. But you had a base of data to work with.
What attracted you to work in Mongolia after Russia?
I was some partners I was doing business with in Russia, and I'd also, and in that time I should mention, I set up a bank in Ukraine, which does not exist anymore. I set up a new bank in Ukraine. I acquired a license from a group down in Dnipropetrovsk, at the Privat Group, but that was just a license, and set up a bank there as well. But what took me to Mongolia is just some friends in Moscow and a gentleman called Gen Hayek, a very well-known business person, and dare I say, of latter years. I mean, he drives the Mongolian Economic Forum. He's very well known. He's the former deputy finance minister. But before he got involved in government, he was the CEO of this bank called Bank. And he is the reason, he is the reason, he is for me, Mr. Mongolia, he promotes that country so well. He's entrepreneurial, but on good days I say thank you to him, and on bad days I blame him. So Dan's a great friend, and through that I just got connected. Mongolia is a small country. There's 3.5 million people. Unlike Russia, where you're close to 140 million people. I may have my stats wrong, but very different in terms of size, scale, and opportunity.
But you, Hausbank, as far as I can see, has done exceptionally well for its investors.
Oh, I mean, like in any emerging economy, you raise a good point, but I believe in investing in emerging economies. It's not about short-term investing unless you're moving into a large developed market. For me, it's long-term. It's at least 5 to 7 to 8 years, possibly up to 10 years, and that's a long time. And you have a lot of volatility, and there's a lot of issues that can go, and situations, and currency risk, etc. But on that particular bank, it's not public. Check the website. You can see how well it's doing. But that bank, it's under its the CEO was appointed a year ago, TJ, and an excellent chairman, Sanjay. That bank has been doing extraordinarily well, really achieving its potential with ROEs into the mid-20s, dividends paid out over the last 4 years, record profits. One interesting stat, we have met our 2024 IPO targets in 2023. So that bank is doing extremely well. But again, I think there's one foreigner in that on the risk side. I know there's one foreigner on the risk side. It's all Mongolians running that business, and they do it better than any foreigner in most of these markets. I think us foreigners coming in confuse the matters. It's more, how do you work together and get the right talent, as in any business, find the right people, and hopefully you'll enjoy some success.
Are you still engaged with Hausbank?
Yes, I was just on a call this morning with Hausbank. I'm still a shareholder of Hausbank and still on the board of Hausbank. Yes.
Okay. And how long were you when did you start investing in Hausbank? How long?
It probably was around 2010. So I'm ready to I'm ready to run for the hills and move on to my next project. And listen, Robert, we can all look at valuations and dream about valuations, but getting liquidity and getting exits, never underestimate it. I don't think anyone that's called would even underestimate that as well.
And so while you were still investing in Hausbank, you thought, oh, let's start a bank in Myanmar.
Well, a payments business. I had no intention of starting a bank or investing into a bank.
Fintech business.
Yeah. Reason being, I mean, even if I could invest, foreigners could not invest. Foreign owners could not invest into banks at that time. But I didn't want to invest into banks because of the regulations and also just the valuations. I think it was going to be more agile having a fintech-driven business, a data business, but not a lending business. There was opportunities to invest into many microfinance businesses. I wanted our business to be built around data, and we launched a B2B digital payments business that we have today and continues to operate in the market today, despite the many challenges. But it was always going to be a payments business, even though you make your money lending. I never wanted to go into the lending business because of the market situation, the market conditions, in terms of being able to get dollar-denominated debt in chat. But I'm building data, so one day, whether it's what Ronak does or someone else comes into it in partnership or someone else takes it over, it provides a good base to do, to build a lending business on top, of course.
And correct me if I'm wrong, prior to the coup, it was doing quite well.
We were doing okay. We were building great momentum. Business was good. It's a B2B business, so we don't go out looking for consumers. We work with business partners, including the microfinance lenders, including the FMCG companies, and we do their payment processing. But we actually go in and re-engineer their payment processing and do that in a more efficient way. You know, in Myanmar, you still today don't have a clearing system or a national payment system. So we were de facto doing a lot of that. And yeah, we had, close to 10,000 agents at the time. We're operating in most regions of Myanmar, but we were not the largest. The largest in Myanmar on the consumer side, a very, very, very successful business owned by the Yoma Group. It was Wave Money, and Wave continues to do a very good job today on the consumer side.
And so when did you start in Myanmar? What year?
We started in 15. I mean, from zero, and we launched about a year and a half later, and I brought in one other investment partner into that business at the time. Once we launched, we as Ronick front run the business and get it operating. So it's not a story. It's actually live. It works. The technology's there. And like most technology businesses today, it's in the cloud. The tech team are elsewhere, who architect all of this. We have a tech team on the ground as well, of course. But where we got cell coverage, Wi-Fi coverage, our platform operates, and you've got fairly good coverage.
So so it was going along, and then somebody kicks over the table and knocks all of the pieces on the floor. A coup happens. People are getting arrested and killed, and you still have to keep things going and also keep your staff safe during that time. That must be incredibly challenging.
Yeah, I mean, listen, let's be clear. There's always someone kicking something off the table or clearing something off the table in emerging economies. I mean, you'd be naive to think otherwise. And if they're not, get nervous, because they are, So, if you don't have a problem, you don't have a business. So yeah, it was I say it's a challenging time. I'm sitting here, in New York, and, I wasn't at the front line. So easy for me to say and easier for me to comment, but I'm a frequent visitor. I was only in Myanmar, 4 weeks ago, and I'm there in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, it was a difficult. COVID was a difficult time, a very difficult time, because remember, countries implement their protocols in a very different way, and in Myanmar, they implemented them in a very rigid way. So, that was really, really difficult for our business to operate during the COVID period. So people can relate to their own experience, where they lived, but it's very different depending on what part of the world you lived in during COVID. And it really was difficult for the team on the ground. I was not able to visit during that COVID period for a couple of years, visit Myanmar. We were daily calls, and, again, we managed to get through COVID. But, coincidentally, Robert, I don't know whether you know it or you planned it, but today is the 3rd anniversary of the military coup in Myanmar. So I pause for a minute on that and say, we're talking about a business, a commercial opportunity, but just to bring it back to, some basics here, and basics is the wrong word. Thousands of people have been killed in Myanmar since the 1st of February, a little under 5,000 people. What's most disturbing is, close to 2.5 million people have been displaced, during that period. And today there's a silent strike in Myanmar, because of what's going on, and the ruling party or army are under severe pressure, and we all hope for change, but whatever change occurs, we all want that to be peaceful. We want that to be a peaceful transition, whatever transition occurs, if it occurs. And, let's hope that in a few weeks or in a few months, something does occur, and it is peaceful. I talked about Mongolia with 3.3 million people. There's 53 million people in Myanmar. So yeah, today is a very important day, and a day to remember what's gone on and what's happened over the last 3 years. As an operator in Myanmar, I stay neutral. I need to visit the country. I need to get into the country. I need to do business. I need to make sure the people are safe. But, I'm only sharing with you what's reported in the media today.
But do you have any restrictions in running your company or your staff that makes it more challenging, or that hasn't changed?
Yeah, I mean, there was the challenge was there from day one because there's always sanctions still,
Mm.
hanging over in Myanmar. They have just, amped up. There's more sanctions imposed, by the US today, and you need to stay on top of those. But as an Irish person, I have to follow the EU sanction requirements, with the UK sanction requirements. We have a Canadian investor, the Canadian sanction requirements, and as a US resident, the US sanction requirements. So you have to fulfill, and they're different. I mean, anyone who are familiar with sanctions, they're different. The names are different, the companies are different. There is nuances there. So that is a tall order. And then you've got limitations within the country. You have limitations that have been imposed over the last 2 or 3 years by the Central Bank of Myanmar, due to the the economic situation, whether that be restrictions on the amount of money you can take out from a bank account, or in terms of conversion rates, currency rates. There's a number of restrictions, and then the biggest one for us is that we operate in all regions of Myanmar, is where we have what we call trapped cash, where we just can't get in to move the money out because of security concerns and the
Mm.
safety of our people. So we have that as well. But what's interesting, going back to what occurred on the 1st of February 3 years ago, is that, yeah, within 3 or 4 months, as things escalated, I think I was within seconds or minutes of shutting the business down, because my fear is that
Wow.
putting the people at risk. And I remember speaking to the CEO, our current CEO, Amy, who's recuperating in Bangkok at the moment in hospital. But she, and I wish her well, but she is, she was giving me, I was getting the updates from Amy on a daily basis. But yeah, the concern is, what's business at the end of the day if, the health and safety of your people is number one. But I would put it down to Amy and the work of her team in terms of, saying, no, let's stick with it. And I thought so as well. I said, we've got something. We've got an agent network. We've got the technology. Hopefully, if we shut it down, 75 people are going to lose their job. Thousands of agents are going to be out of work, or whatever money they're getting for the work they do, they wouldn't have that income. So we said, like, let's persevere. And that really was the point of moving into the NGO sector and beginning to do work on the NGO side. So for the
What do
last,
you mean by that, by working on the NGO side?
well, all of the businesses collapsed. So no one was lending money.
Ah, okay.
FMCGs were not distributing the same volume as they were doing, and still not today. But because of the displacement of people and the huge humanitarian needs, there's a lot of NGOs in Myanmar distributing financial aid and other aid, much needed aid to the population, to the people in Myanmar. So what we got involved in is the distribution of the financial aid through our B2B platform, and that's what we continue to do today. So that was our movement into the NGO sector.
Okay. And so it's challenging operating in emerging frontier markets. It's also challenging when people are getting killed and arrested, and you still have to keep going, and you're thinking of walking away from that, but you decide to say. What have you found working in these three different economies, and probably a few others? What are the greatest challenges, apart from a coup? I understand it's a very different situation that you faced, that most people from the West just completely don't understand.
I think people do understand, but I think the greatest challenges that really, Robert, have been in the last 3 to 4 months, because the situation has really deteriorated in Myanmar, and you're making promises and commitments to clients, and I'm part of that. I'm out there and meeting, or I'm on the phone with them. Your reputation's at stake, because you're saying one thing, but now you can't execute it because of X, Y, and Z. And when a business is under pressure, not just my business, but other people's businesses, they don't care if X, Y, and Z has happened. they want a solution, they want an answer. And when you're processing payments, they want their money, you know. So I would say some of the biggest challenges have really popped up in the last 3 to 4 months. Tough. I mean, you're dealing with reputational challenges, personal reputational challenges, business reputational challenges, because of your inability to fulfill what you want to do and what you should be doing because of the difficulty of the operating environment. And I would say, yeah, I would never want to relive what I've gone through and going through over the last few months, because you know, your reputation, your health is important, but your reputation is also important. And some of the stuff I've been dealing with in my business, it's not good. It's not nice. It's not stuff you want to be dealing with.
Right.
You know, integrity is key, and I think a lot of that has been challenged and questioned. But you know, we persevere. Not persevere with ignorance, persevere with trying to get through and get out to the other side. You know, and I see a lovely sunset here with someone's got their picture up, climate friendly. I mean, hopefully there is going to be a new dawn in Myanmar, and all of this struggle will have been worth it. But it's worth it anyway, because I think we've already delivered a lot of good in terms of the work we're doing. But we've a lot of recovery as well still to do in terms of, you know, we're a 100% foreign-owned business. You know, I have no local partners. I have a local team, but I have no local partners. So your rules of engagement and in terms of your ethics are very different, you know, in terms of what you'll do and what you'll tolerate. And, you know, we have a line on what we don't tolerate, you know, no matter what.
And my wife knows actually quite a lot about Southeast Asia and Myanmar, and she had tried to work there in one of the refugee camps, developing a vocational hotel school. And she's saying it's so incredibly complex, Myanmar, to operate there. So many different cultures, so many different ethnic groups. And also said people forget that it was one of the biggest economies in Asia at one time.
It was the richest economy in Southeast Asia, and probably still is one of the richest economies in the informal way, you know. But it's got its challenges, and in the north, it always had its challenges in the Shan area, and you know, disturbingly as well, you know, Myanmar has now overtaken Afghanistan as the world's largest producer of opium. You know, so it is made up of a lot of different regions, ethnically very different. And, you know, you see a lot of other foreign actors, including the Chinese, who have got involved, more involved in recent months, you know, in putting pressure, and also Thailand in terms of its proximity and its extended border with Myanmar. So, you know, Myanmar is not straightforward. There's a lot of good stuff, and there's also a lot of bad stuff that's not new because of the coup that was going on in Myanmar in different regions, and it's well documented about, you know, Rakhine, and you know, there's good parts and bad parts of Rakhine, you know, but there's a lot of, it's got its struggles, and it's, even if it gets through what it's going through, there's a long way forward for Myanmar. But I would be hopeful. It's got, you know, you're focused on the middle class and that you know, the up and coming, that people has move up that socioeconomic those socioeconomic classes, that they can be your customers. It's not the elite, it's not the top, you know, they all own different businesses, whatever they do. And they are the future of the country. They're the future of any country. And clearly it is the good work that I see. The NGO piece is new to me, Robert, and I see a great opportunity in the NGO space. I'm digging into that a little bit more because I think that goes beyond Myanmar. And I know there's a lot of other people doing regional work on the NGO space. And some institutions that I wasn't familiar with before that I just met recently when I was in London last week or the week before last. I think there's, you know, out of this is also born an opportunity to see whether we can be doing more on the NGO space in partnership with other providers in other parts of the world, whether that be in Asia or whether that be in Africa. So, you know, out of something bad comes something good, and I see that as something that we're going to see if we can participate in that space. But yeah, I would be hopeful that, you know, Myanmar will move forward. You know, there's a lot of smart, intelligent people. I'm sure many people know those people who are working overseas, whether it be in Dubai or other parts of Asia, Thailand, the US, whatever. I think, those smart brains, hopefully they'll get back to Myanmar over the next couple of years and reignite it. It's the people themselves that are going to reignite and rebuild the country.
So you've been going back during the coup period several times over the year. You're going again, I think tomorrow or the next day.
I'm next Saturday week. Yeah.
Yeah, next
Dates.
week. Is there an issue for you traveling around as a foreigner? Any safety issues? Because you still need to operate there. You have very high integrity because I know you for quite a while, and you won't cross the line on certain issues, but the line is kind of blurred over there at the moment.
Yeah, I think you just and there's no medals for heroes in this space. You just need to be careful and need to be conscious about what's going on. And yeah, I think maybe what's changed is clearly there's, you're not out in the evening time having dinners in restaurants. You call it you start early in the morning and you call it quits maybe about 7 o'clock or 7:30. And it's also your people need to get home, so that's when maybe a few bad things are happening. But in Yangon, not too bad. I think when it's other parts of Myanmar, Yangon is, I say Yangon today, but tomorrow it could be bad. But, and there's different parts of different townships, as they call them, in Yangon as well. But if my personal safety was at risk, Robert, I wouldn't be going. I have a wife and kids, and I mean, I just wouldn't be going. I mean, I'm not out there to say, hey, look what I'm doing. If it's safe to go, I will go. And if it's not, it's not. And you listen to the people that you work with, and you listen to the people that advise you. And I think it's straightforward. I'm not doing anything different. That I see all the people. I mean, the people who work for the NGOs, they're going out into these far-flung regions. They're the people, in my opinion, they need medals. They're the ones taking the risk. I mean, I've met many of them, and with local Myanmar people, they're the ones going, taking the risk and delivering aid, and that may not be money, it may be other products or services as well. They're the ones really taking the risk. Some remarkable.
There's a few questions which I'm going to start taking. I just wanted to know, because you're a facilitator of money transfers of the financial system, are you seen by the government, oh, you're helping the insurgents?
Very delicate around the NGO space. We are regulated by the Central Bank of Myanmar. I meet and have met with the central bank on many occasions in Naypyidaw, an interesting place, city itself, purposely built in the middle of a jungle. But I mean, they see us as I smile when they say it, because they said you're systemically important. It's like, what? I don't think so. But anyway, if they want to think that, but if they think that, they are aware about what we're doing, and they need to be aware about what we're doing. And the sensitivity is over when you're distributing NGO payments, of course. Where are they coming from? Who are they going to? And quite naturally, they understand that. But, NGOs are licensed to operate in the country, and their projects are licensed as well. However, many of the people who are behind those NGOs can't get into the country. They can't get their visas. They're operating remotely from Bangkok. So there's a lot of, diplomats who just can't get, but government people just can't get into the country either, so I need to hold the line as well, because who knows? Sure. I need to be able to get in. I have my visa to go in, but I still need to be able to enter the country. But yeah, NGO payments are sensitive, and we're very aware of that. So there's certain NGOs we don't work with, and there's certain NGOs we will work with. And that is more just so that we can have continuity. And we got some good news recently. I will not say what it is, but we got some really good news on a significant NGO that, hopefully we will launch with them in the next 6 weeks. And it's going to be, it's a significant project.
Oh, that's great. I'm just going to start taking a couple of questions. Ava I'm kind of paraphrase her question. When you started going to Russia and Mongolia and then ultimately Myanmar, was there a plan, or is this you saw an opportunity to develop the market financially?
Yeah, there was a plan. And before I put $1 in, well, I put $1 in by putting someone into the country for 2 years before I did anything. So, for example, with Myanmar, I had many discussions about it before I went there. But my first investment was to put a person in Myanmar, and all that person did was to build relationships and to write a report every 2 weeks. Well, we weren't really writing a report. We were just taking, a summary of the key articles from within the country and distributing them out because we didn't want to share an opinion. We were concerned. But that allowed us to build a relationship. So that first investment I did was just a person in Myanmar, not even with a rep office, just, someone I paid for to be there for a couple of years. And his name was Oliver Belfleet Nash. And Ollie did a great job for us in just establishing relationships with different families, different groups, different businesses. So when I went to Myanmar, it was a lot easier to have a dialogue and have conversations. So that was part of the entree. And then it was also part of seeing who we could invest it with and getting to know more about the market and the opportunities in terms of investing into the country. So yes, there was method behind the madness of going into Myanmar at the time. And that was the initial kind of like look-see for a 2-year period before there was a commitment to put capital and build a team and invest into the technology. One thing we did do, which I picked up from previous experience of investing into emerging economies, is we and it sounds maybe a bit strange, but we own the technology. So I did not want to contract the technology. We own the technology. So I partnered with a great group out of Maryland, Thorn Technologies, and they're part of our business as well. And because a lot of the customization you need to do can be very expensive for a very small business, but it's more economical when the way you do it, the way we're doing it. God knows in 2 or 3 years we don't need it. But yeah, the initial period, again, having the right technology strategy and just having the right business strategy, which has evolved, of course.
Well, having known you, that yes, you'll take risks, but you're very careful in taking calculated risks. You just don't kind of dive in with your eyes closed. Well, let's see what happens.
That's for sure. I mean, if you're putting your own money into a business, it's personal. So you think about it differently, and and then you've got responsibility for other investment from other partners who come into your business, and you got a responsibility to your customers. So I mean, anyone who's involved in this business is doing the same thing. There's nothing unique to what I'm doing.
Okay. Beata had a question. Well, they're kind of unusual. How do you survive financially? Well, his wife is a secret billionaire. She just hasn't told him yet. Who are your main donors or sponsors, or is it just you?
I don't have donors. If someone can introduce me to a donor, I'll give you my address or my bank account. I don't have a donor. I've never received a dime in technical assistance even.
Do you have external investors?
No, I have people who I know, who I do business with, and who have experience of dealing in emerging economies, and that's who invest into the business. But in parallel to my investment business, I also participate in an advisory business. So I wear two hats. I live a portfolio life, like I'm sure a lot of people do today. So I do both emerging economies from an investment standpoint, but I also do a bunch of advisory activities, which keeps me connected into the you can call it the real world or the other world.
Okay. Michael wanted to know, since you're a young man, well, he looks very young. He's not that young. He just lives well. Do you have a clear life goal?
I wouldn't say I have a clear goal. I think I have mantras. Keep fit in the body, keep fit in the mind. I am not young, I am old, as Robert knows. I think the other thing is you have to, I enjoy it. If I don't enjoy it at my age, I'm going to stop doing it. I have to enjoy it. And did I have moments of pause as it relates to Myanmar? many of them. You could be doing these simpler things. You could get money and put it into the stock exchange, get a broker, and do that. There's different ways to do it, but you'd miss I think it's like if you're training for something, or it's the journey. It's the journey. The goal is every day. For me, it's the journey. Getting there, it's a bit of an anticlimax, but it's the journey. So I don't have there's no goal. I'm not looking to retire. I'm 57 years of age in a couple of weeks, and I want to stay fit and healthy to continue to stay in business as long, and in different capacities. Maybe I think that's what will evolve. But there's no kind of goal. I've lived in many different places, not too many different places, but many different places. And I think I enjoy travel, and I enjoy learning. And I keep saying that mantra: every day is a school day. And I've no real goal. There's certain things I want to do because I can do it and I can make it happen. So go do it. But yeah, I think it's about enjoying the journey. That's my goal every day.
Okay. And I agree with you that I am optimistic for Myanmar in the long term, ultimately. So do you have a new adventure that you're starting to look at post Myanmar?
Not yet. Not. I think the next thing that we've been doing work on is on the NGO payment space, which I mentioned earlier. And I think it's about how do you pull out of a country and have a regional platform, and that's what we're focused on right now, amongst a bunch of other stuff. But that is in terms of looking at something so agnostic right now to a particular country, but how do you take what we've already established and put it in and enable it with other players who are doing the last mile payments, using smartphone technology and a technology platform that is already created, set up with all the controls and the plugins, etc. So we're looking at that with a number of players who could utilize, what we've got with our knowledge and experience. So kind of like pulling out the best in class and saying, hey, how do we regionalize this? But you'd be doing it in a different way, of course.
So you're going there, and it's mainly looking how can we expand on the backbone that we've built, but now offer it to also NGOs. There are a lot of NGOs.
Well, not just the NGOs, but the payments solution providers that work with the NGOs. I think there's a huge opportunity around the NGO space, and I am a novice, new coming into it. So you think there's lots of, but then as you dig into it, you get educated a bit more, and probably the opportunities is great. But if I ever thought the use of blockchain, and I'll use the word token, not crypto, this is the space. My God, how you could get value to the people who need it within seconds, providing you can exchange that token, for a product, service, or cash at the end. But and I know there's a lot of projects underway by different groups, but this needs serious re-engineering. And I can't see regulators getting too hung up over this in terms of what's going on. But in terms of the payment space, this is ripe for blockchain and having a token to get that out, to get that much needed aid out to the right people and verifying it is the right people and getting what they need. And my God, you'd save a lot of money and more importantly, a lot of time, especially when people need that. So I think there's a play there. One would need to be sensitive about it, but in terms of using, we're hearing lots about blockchain and separately on the token side, but I think there's a huge play in the NGO space, and there maybe adoption and adaption thereafter into other sectors of the payment industry.
Because at the moment, anybody who transfers any money, via the banking system is always shocked at, this is an email. Why does it have to cost 50 euro to send an email to another country?
Well, there's more agile players now. I think the market's changed. There's more cost-effective ways of doing it. I mean, I'll jump on to the area of the whole blockchain and crypto space. From a regulation standpoint, you do need to understand who is getting money, who is sending money. I mean, if we don't have control over that, we're out of control at the end of the day. I think that is the big issue, and it's good to see some of the central banks getting involved with their stable coins. You know, so I think there has to be solutions there, but yeah, the movement and the transfer of value can be done more efficiently. But I also believe that you need to have the right processes and procedures in place to make sure that to avoid any to identify the bad actors in this space, because it's the bad actors that will jump onto it and have jumped onto it straight away. Already, we know that in terms of the movement of money, with some of these wars that are going on in the world, and I know it's in Myanmar, I know it's in Israel. I mean, not Israel, but with Hamas. I mean, there's a lot of people you can read in the newspaper. There's a lot of bad actors using this as a way to to receive funds. So, it does need to have the right rails and the right controls on it. But if you can, I think for the NGO space, I think it would be a great way of getting money to the beneficiary, or at times of disaster, the people who need it, within seconds, not within days or weeks or months, within seconds.
So Ava had another question. Will you be interested in supporting some impact investing initiative in the region like Myanmar, maybe other challenging markets, MENA and Africa? But mainly her question is, are your financial systems work for transferring funds from investors or impact funds to local impact or social entrepreneurs? Is that what you're also looking at expanding on?
I mean, technology is adaptable. I really don't. I'm not maybe clear on the question, but what we have with our platform is given, for example, given FMCG players or given NGOs who are delivering projects control over the money they're distributing. Now we are part of that, doing the last mile delivery, but they have a platform, they have a desktop where they can see real time. Think of a wallet, where they can see the money coming in and out of the wallet each time, because it's all digitized, so they can see. And if you're an FMCG player, as your truck goes out and does the payments or does the deliveries, you can see the money coming into your. So it's a way of delivering operating efficiency as well in the FMCG space, and providing them, a more efficient payment process. But I'm not maybe clear in terms of what the objective is, but happy to look at it if we can be connected separate to Robert.
Yeah, and the what you're developing, that infrastructure in Myanmar, is that also, because Vietnam is also, booming economically, or
Yeah,
at least it was the last time I looked. Is
it
that
still
also
is.
something that you're looking to expand?
Yeah, no, I've been speaking to some other players in Vietnam, and looking at them, seeing if they're interested in doing things that we're doing as well, because clearly way more advanced, way more progressed. You look at platforms like SmartPay, a former colleague of mine from my Renaissance days, who's involved with that business. It's incredible, but clearly Vietnam is fundamentally different. And it's like, everyone talks about M-Pesa, but you need to make sure you got a great regulator and a good operating environment. You can do whatever you want.
So that was a success of M-Pesa. They had a good regulator.
A good regulator. I believe they had a good regulator. It's, when you look at M-Pesa, and actually, I had for a short time one of their people working with me, who was running their business down in South Africa. But yeah, outside, I would say outside of Kenya, I'm not, I don't know how many markets it's worked in with the same level of success. You need, whatever you do, you need to have a regulator, and you need to have the operating environments that works for you as well. So yeah, there's a combination of factors.
How can this audience that's watching now live, and those that will watch the replay, which is most of the people, how can they help you?
If you want to invest into Myanmar, I think it's more about sharing knowledge, sharing learnings. I may be talking about something today, and it may create an idea for someone else who's listening in to say, because in terms of their market experience, you're down, you're drilled down, you're focused on the country you're looking at, and you could be missing a wider opportunity. So I'm sure I'm missing many opportunities. So always open-minded to hear and listen to, what other people's thoughts, ideas are, or in terms of collaboration, cooperation into other countries. Not a problem, So I think help comes in more sharing ideas and brainstorming opportunities, and how do you do things in partnership, It doesn't need to be all alone. It's lonely and it's more difficult all alone. You need to do it in collaboration.
Yeah, well, if there's anything that we can do to help, we also know a lot of the NGOs. A lot of the NGOs are not as poor as everybody thinks they are. So they have a good sales story there, but many of them are actually quite wealthy. So having efficiency in getting payments across would probably be very much in their interest, whether it's in Myanmar or other places. So if we can help you in any way, we have 9 minutes left, because I promised I would end
Yeah.
exactly on the hour. Is there something that we didn't cover that you find important? Because I remember when my wife and I first went to Myanmar many, many years ago, probably 30 years ago, and we went to the Shredagon Pagoda and we thought, wow, this is the real Disneyland. It was just so fantastic. And it was very sad, to see what had evolved from that. But I'm sure that things will turn the other way. Are there any final points that you feel are important for those to know about emerging frontier market, Mongolia, Russia, Myanmar, because we get a very skewed perception through the media of what's going on?
Yeah, no, I mean, I put them into different categories anyway. In terms of Mongolia, for me, Mongolia is like, I wouldn't call it frontier at this stage. You've got the third largest copper mine in the world. You've got whatever's in the periodic table is underground in Myanmar. A lot of it now has been, the mining industry has taken off. And we all know the demand for copper. Lithium, Mongolia has it. Uranium, Mongolia has it. So Mongolia is in another stratosphere as far as I'm concerned. It's really progressing. Small country, wedged between Russia and China. And it's done a very good job in navigating that. It does depend on China, but I put Mongolia into a completely different, buckets in terms of, I think the issue for Mongolia is just the size of the population from a consumer standpoint. In terms of scale. They need a few more people. I mean, it's the size of Western Europe, and there's only 3.5 million people. But Mongolia is a brilliant, brilliant place to do business. If you're in the mining sector, they're exporting talent. They're the head of copper globally for Rio for the last, I don't know, 7-8 years is a Mongolian, fantastic guy, Bulbatar. But it's not just that; it's their technical knowledge in terms of mining that they're sought after. So yeah, it's a great place. They have a very good Mongolian Economic Forum that my good friend Gan chairs. So look out for that. It's usually in July around their Nadam festival if you want to know more about Mongolia. But I just think it's a great place. And yeah, I think it's I don't look for countries like Myanmar. I look for countries like Myanmar where the door is open, and where you can create value and you can help grow, and then pass the baton to, a larger institution to take it over. So it's circumstances that find me in a very difficult situation in Myanmar. This is experience I never wanted. This is a journey I wasn't looking for. But as I said to the team when I met with them when I first went back after COVID, and I mean it with all sincerity, this is no longer a business. This is a family, and that's what I said to them. Because they stuck with it. They were resilient. They had the tenacity. As I say, I'm sitting here in the comfort of New York, out in the suburbs. They're at the front line. Not Michael Madden. They're at the front line. And they're the heroes. They're the people who are taking the challenges from clients every day today as well. They are the people that are living through this third anniversary today, not me. So yeah, you look at things through a different prism. When you go through and you have those experiences, it can either push you apart or it can bring you together. And I don't know where it came from, but as I was talking to them, I hadn't scripted. I usually don't have things scripted. And I said, hey, this is no longer a business. This is a family. And those words stick in my head. They're just brilliant. The people I have, but all, just brilliant people. And I don't know why they do what they do. And I owe them big,
What is the name of the company in Myanmar, actually?
The name of the legal entity name, I'll get technical, is
Or the
Radical Truth.
brand that's, yeah.
The trading name is Ongo, ONGO.
ONGO. Okay, I will definitely take a look. Michael,
And hopefully you will hear about it in good ways, not in bad ways.
if we can help you in any way, just let me know, and do reach out to Tony Zola when, if you're over there.
Absolutely.
A good guy to know. Thank you so much for doing this, and also for the work that you're doing. I really appreciate it. And
Robert, thank you for all the work you do, because you're the hero of this space. So thank you very much.
I always say my biggest challenge is not convincing everybody else. My biggest challenge is convincing Ricky that this is worth it.
It is. You do incredible work. Thank you
Thank
very
you
much,
so
Robert.
much. You stay well, travel safely. Thank you,
you.
everybody, for joining us. The replay will be ready shortly. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.